listening to Your Secret is Safe with Me, non-judgmental talk about infidelity with Dr. Marie Murphy. If you're looking for new perspectives on complicated relationship issues, you've come to the right place.
Days go by, they're crawling by.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. I'm Dr. Marie Murphy. I'm a relationship coach, and I help people who are engaging in anything they think counts as infidelity to deal with their feelings, clarify what they want, and make decisions about what they're going to do. No shame, no blame, no judgments. I know a lot of the so-called advice that's out there for people who are engaging in infidelity is little more than thinly veiled judgment, but that is not what I provide. I give you guidance and support that respects the fullness of your humanity and the complexity of your situation, no matter what you're doing. As of the time of this recording, I am about as confident as I can be in saying that my new offerings are going to be available as of the week after you're listening to this podcast episode, the week after this episode is released. My new anonymous group coaching program, You're Not the Only One, will be ready for you to join as of January 10th, if all goes to plan. And right now, it's looking like everything will indeed go to plan. You're Not the Only One will be an opportunity for folks who are engaging in any kind of infidelity to come together on a conference call line anyway, and get coached by me and hear others get coached by me as well. It can be so tremendously helpful to hear that other people are dealing with challenges that are similar to yours. And it can be so incredibly inspiring to see that other people can and do successfully deal with their infidelity situations in ways they feel great about. So this new program of mine is going to provide an opportunity for that while also keeping your privacy protected. You're Not the Only One will include group coaching calls and the recordings of the group coaching calls for you to listen to whenever you like. And it will also have videos of me teaching you things that I don't teach on the podcast, as well as assignments to help you apply my teachings to the specifics of your unique infidelity situation. And for those of you who want the simplicity of a do-it-yourself approach, you'll have the option to purchase just the bundle of teachings and assignments without getting access to the group coaching calls. And I am still offering one-on-one coaching via Zoom. So for information on all of these awesome options, head on over to my website, mariemurphyphd.com. All right. Here we are at that time of year when a lot of us are thinking about making changes. A new calendar year is in front of us. Hello, 2024. What I want you to ask yourself today, or what I want you to consider today is, what do you want to change about your infidelity situation or within your infidelity situation this year? What do you want to be different? Although I have to confess that I think the whole idea that change should come with the new year is kind of ridiculous, because any time is a good time for making changes, in my opinion. I know a lot of people love making New Year's resolutions, and if that's important to you, then I love that for you. And even if you don't have to think about changes you want to make just as we turn the calendar to a new year, now is just as good a time as any to examine your infidelity situation and think about what you would like to be different about it or within it. If you're happy with things as they are, then great. If you like your infidelity situation just the way it is, that is fantastic. But if you want things to change, I encourage you to get really clear on what exactly you would like to change. And now we're going to talk about how you can begin to make those changes. Because make no mistake about it, if you want changes, you are going to have to take responsibility for making those changes, right? Sometimes we kind of hope that something will just happen, or someone else will do something. And then our infidelity situation will change, and it will change in a way that we like. You can take that approach if you really want to. It's totally your prerogative to just kind of hang out and see what happens. But if you really want change, I encourage you to decide that change is yours to make. Now, one of the reasons why we don't make changes even when we know we want change, or we don't even try to make changes even when we know we really want change, is because we think we don't know what to do in order to make the changes we desire. We think that we don't know what to do to resolve our infidelity situation, so we don't try to do anything. And then we don't resolve our infidelity situation, which proves to us that we don't know what to do to resolve our infidelity situation. Or maybe we make some half-assed attempts to do something to bring about change, but these attempts were pretty half-assed indeed, and not much comes out of them. Shocking. So nothing changes, and then we interpret that as evidence that we just don't know what to do. I want to suggest that changing your infidelity situation does not start with figuring out what to do about your infidelity situation. I want to suggest that there are a few steps before that one, and one of the most important steps is this. You've got to decide on purpose what you're going to think about yourself. You've got to decide what you are consciously and intentionally going to believe is true about yourself. What you think about yourself matters so much, and yet so many of us are not all that conscious of what we believe is true about ourselves. And so many of us think things about ourselves that are extremely unhelpful and not necessarily even a little bit true. But when we get into the habit of believing a particular story about ourselves, it may become so familiar to us that it just becomes the truth, quote unquote, of who we are, and we don't question it. Sometimes because we don't even think it's possible to question it. But it is possible to question and adjust your beliefs about yourself. And it's so important to do so because your thinking about yourself creates feelings. And your feelings give you the capacity or the propensity to take particular kinds of actions or refrain from taking particular kinds of actions. And your actions and inactions have definite results or outcomes or consequences. This dynamic is known as the think, feel, act cycle. I've mentioned it on the podcast before. It's important to be aware of. So, if you want to resolve your infidelity situation, you're going to want to make sure that what you are thinking about yourself is going to help you do it. Now, just to be clear, the point is never that you just start thinking differently and then all of a sudden things magically start to happen differently. That might happen sometimes, but I wouldn't rely on that as a change-making strategy. Rather, the point is that if we want to change our infidelity situation, we will have to do different things. We will have to take action in a different way. But in order to do those different things, we have to think different thoughts first. Before we can take action, either in general or a more specific action in particular, we've got to be the person who is capable of taking action. Or more specifically, we've got to be the person who is capable of taking actions we've never taken before. If we're going to make changes, if we want to make our infidelity situation different from whatever our infidelity situation currently is, we have to be capable of taking actions that are different from the ones we've been taking up to this point. And the thing is, we might not yet be capable of taking actions that are different from the ones we've been taking up to this point. If we were, we might have already taken different actions and already created different outcomes for ourselves. And in order to become capable of dealing with our infidelity situations differently, we need to be able to think about ourselves differently. We need to be able to think of ourselves as capable of dealing with our infidelity situations differently. So I work with a lot of folks who are married and are involved with someone else. They have an affair partner and are very much interested in pursuing a relationship with their affair partner, but they believe they cannot leave their marriage. If you really want to leave your marriage, your first order of business is to recognize that it is your thinking that is keeping you from leaving your marriage. It's not the universe forcing you to stay put. It's not your spouse preventing you from leaving. It's not what other people might think of you if you get divorced that's keeping you in your marriage. It's your belief that you can't leave your marriage. If you're willing to recognize that, you're off to a great start. So what next? How do you start to believe that you can leave your marriage if that is indeed what you want to do? First, you may want to recognize in a very official, very ceremonial way that you have the capacity to change. You have the capacity to change your thinking. You have the capacity to do things you've never done before. You have the capacity to do things that you never thought you would do. Recognizing this and believing this is a really big deal. And it's often a really important prerequisite to getting into the specifics of believing how it might be possible for you to do a specific thing, like being a person who can leave their marriage. And this may sound like a really simple thing, perhaps even so simple that it's not even really worth bothering with. But I can assure you that this is really important. After all, so many of us tell ourselves over and over and over that we can't change, or that we aren't capable of making certain changes, or that we can't do certain things. And when you tell yourself that these things are true, you may well start to believe yourself. And moreover, you may have been telling yourself these kinds of things for so long and believing yourself as you tell yourself these kinds of things for so long that this just seems like the truth of who you are. You've got to be willing to reckon with that. So whatever changes you want to make in your infidelity situation, consider that any of those changes or all of those changes that you want to make starts with simply deciding to believe, I am a person who is capable of making the changes that I want to make in my infidelity situation in particular, or maybe even in my life as a whole. Now, here's the awesome thing about deciding to believe that. You can prove that to yourself quite easily. You can quite easily prove to yourself that you are a person who is capable of making the changes you want to make. You can pick one small change to make that you think is really easy to make. And it doesn't have to have anything to do with your infidelity situation. It could, but it doesn't have to. Let's say you set an alarm to wake up every morning. And if you do, I kind of hate you. I do not need to set an alarm. I just fucking wake up earlier than I would like to every day. It's quite awful, but that's another story. Anyway, let's say you use an alarm to wake you up in the mornings. You could start setting your alarm 1 minute earlier. I am not joking about this. You could start setting your alarm 1 minute earlier, and I bet that wouldn't make too much of a dent in your sense of how much you got to sleep or how rested you feel when you wake up. I bet that setting your alarm 1 minute earlier would not feel like a terribly hard thing to do. But yet it matters. I used to teach meditation, and people who were new to meditation would sometimes tell me things like, well, I'm going to set my alarm an hour earlier in the mornings, and I'm going to get up early, and I'm going to meditate for 45 minutes out of that hour. And I'd be like, why don't you start with getting up 10 minutes earlier and meditating for like 5 minutes out of those 10? And they'd be like, no, that's not enough. And I'd say, okay, fine. If you want to get up an hour earlier and meditate for 45 minutes every day, do it. I'll be happy for you if you do. And then I'd see them the next week and they'd be like, oh, I didn't get up early even once. Now, is it possible to just start getting up an hour earlier and meditating for 45 minutes every morning? Sure it is. If we want to do this, and if we believe we can do this, we could just make that change starting tomorrow. My point here is not that change has to be hard or has to come in small increments, like setting your alarm a minute earlier in the mornings. Change doesn't have to come in super small increments, but sometimes making change in really small increments serves us really, really well, especially if we don't truly believe that we have the capacity to make change. We may need to prove to ourselves that we actually do have the capacity to make change in pretty small steps. This may not seem glamorous. It may not seem exciting. It may not seem like enough. But I assure you that when it comes to believing in your ability to change, every little bit of belief you build is a lot. So if your belief in your capacity to change is a little shaky, start with something small. And again, the point here is not necessarily to change your infidelity situation in one fell swoop. We'll get to that. The point here is to start to believe in your capacity to change. So set your alarm 1 minute earlier for the mornings. Show yourself that you are a person who is capable of getting up 1 minute earlier. This is not a small thing. If you want to meditate, start with meditating for 1 minute a day. Or if that sounds ridiculous, try 5 minutes a day. You can build up to 5 hours of meditation a day if you want to. I am not suggesting that you permanently limit yourself, but I am suggesting that when you're trying to build belief in your ability to make change, you want to make it as easy as possible for you to succeed at first. Your first order of business is to get some wins. You want to start to believe in yourself and believe in your capacity to change. And if you don't yet believe in it, you want to systematically and deliberately set about showing yourself that you can indeed change, and taking consistent steps, even if they seem easy or small, is essential to doing this. Once you have warmed up to believing that you have the capacity to change, then you have some fuel in the tank to help you start believing that you can be the person who makes the changes in your infidelity situation that you want to make. It really helps to have this baseline belief in place before you attempt to think of yourself in a different way. I am someone who has the capacity to make the changes that I want to make. Because if you don't have that belief, quite simply, thinking that you aren't capable of change will translate into the action of not thinking about yourself differently. So you won't be able to do other things differently. Once you're willing to truly believe in your bones that you can change, here's the next question I want you to consider. What would you need to believe differently about yourself in order to start making one of the changes in your infidelity situation that you want to make? So let's go back to my earlier example, which was that sometimes people tell me that they can't leave their marriages. And when people think that they can't leave their marriages, they sometimes say things like, well, I can't be the person who left their family, or I can't be the person who failed at marriage, right? If you really want to leave your marriage, if you know that's what you truly desire, those thoughts are not going to help you do it. So the question becomes, what else could you possibly think about yourself instead of those things? I can't be the person who left their family. I can't be the person who failed at marriage. What could you think about yourself instead? For instance, is it possible that you might be a person who reconfigured their family rather than thinking of yourself as a person who left their family? It's entirely possible that you're planning on staying very much involved in your family, even if you choose to disengage from your marriage. Getting a divorce does not have to mean you leave your family in any literal or complete sense. There are many ways to be family and do family, even after extricating yourself from a marriage. You can be family with your future ex-spouse forever, even if you aren't married to them forever. Anyway, there are lots of ways that you could think about yourself if you leave your marriage. You don't have to think of yourself as a person who left their family. And is it possible that you did not fail at marriage? It might indeed be possible that you didn't fail at marriage at all. There might be a million other ways of thinking about what happened. And it's also possible that it isn't really possible to fail at marriage anyway. You might decide to believe that you engaged in your marriage as best as you could. And the fact that you don't want to stay in your marriage forever is not an indication that you've done anything wrong or your spouse has done anything wrong. The point of thinking differently about yourself is to feel better about yourself. And the point of feeling better about yourself is to be able to take different actions in relation to your infidelity situation. And when you take different actions, you're able to make the changes you desire. But it's damn near impossible to make the changes we want to make if our thinking is not conducive to making those changes. Good luck trying to leave your marriage if you think that leaving your marriage is going to make you a person who left their family, and you think that being someone who left their family is not a good thing. And good luck trying to change any of your thinking about yourself if you don't believe you have the capacity to change. It might sound simple, and it is, but this is so important and so powerful. If you want things in your infidelity situation to be different, you have to be willing and able to do things differently. And if you want to do things differently, you have to be able to think about yourself and your capacity to change differently. So maybe your primary New Year's resolution or your keystone New Year's resolution could be to cultivate your belief in your capacity to change. Using our power to think intentionally is one of the greatest opportunities we have in life. If you want to learn more about how to use the power of your mind in a conscious, deliberate way so that you can deal with your infidelity situation in a way that you feel great about, let's work together. Starting next week, unless there is some crazy unexpected tech glitch or some freak occurrence of some kind, I'll be ready to welcome you into my group coaching program. You're not the only one, or send you off with a bundle of teachings and assignments that will help you manage your mind so that you can make the changes in your infidelity situation that you want to make. And of course, we can still work together one-on-one. For more information on all of that, head on over to my website, mariemurphyphd.com, and have a look at the services page. Thank you all so much for listening. Happy 2024. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Your Secret is Safe with Me with Dr. Marie Murphy. Make sure to click subscribe to get updates on our latest episodes.